Thanks so much. Well, we're learning useful things here. I'm glad for the diversity of your communications. I wonder if I could get now from you something that is perhaps a juicy story or just a great challenge. So I would like to ask anyone on this panel, when you look back at your experiences, which would you say was the most difficult or thorniest truth-seeking enterprise project you ever had to pursue? So, Jill, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I'll start. Yeah. So the thorniest truth-seeking exercise, I attempted to write a book on forgiveness. And I spent about 10 years. You know, that seems like a long time, right? But, you know, as a humanist, you're doing other things. You've got other things on the go. It takes a long time, right? You have to think. But it seemed to me like, you know, I've now had the chance to work with people in all disciplines, you know, because of my work as a university administrator. So I know that engineers will try to solve the problem before they've understood the problem. You know, people in humanist fields, we're trying to define the terms long after, you know, the problem has gone away. So this is something that I find very curious. But in any case, I spent quite a lot of time, you know, trying to really come up with a theory of forgiveness in a particular context, and it just seemed like every single time that I, you know, had my finger on something, it was like it all turned to sand and it just ran out of my hands, and I was just like, okay, I give up. So it was a very humbling exercise, but it was an ambitious task, and you know, I still stand by, you know, my effort. But I want to juxtapose that with just one other thing, and that is the other thorniest truth-seeking exercise I've ever had was trying to decide at my previous institution how many academic programs we had at the university. You would think that the provost's office should be able to find out how many academic programs. Well, you know, it turns out that, you know, there's one list in the registrar's office, there's another list in the provost's office, the deans and faculties have their own list. What do you call a program? You know, like, how do you decipher that? I mean, it was, I couldn't believe it. I was like, how is this possible? So I just want to use it as a springboard for, you know, something that I think is related maybe to some of the questions that have been discussed here in terms of how we verify things, and that is the question about data. That, you know, we are more and more swimming in vast oceans of data all over the place, and we're you know, we're very sloppy at, you know, storing it, accessing it, using it, managing it, keeping it secure, private, you know, but accessible. You know, these are so I do think that when it comes to sort of our quest for truth-telling exercises, that you know, how we go about managing data in a very banal way, you know, like my example with the questions. But there are some more important, you know, things that will come out.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot. It is fascinating when something as simple as counting becomes a huge challenge, and that's a great example. I think, Nancy, you look like you might be ready to share a story.
I guess I wouldn't provide a specific example, but just coming from someone who's been in the environment field for pretty much my entire career, but from different perspectives, I find it most difficult when public opinion has gotten ahead of where the science is. And so although logically we can understand where public opinion is, and certainly there is a consistency in terms of taking action to protect the environment, at times when you do not have sufficient evidence to say definitively that this is the case, recognizing that certainly we take a precautionary principle, but apply a precautionary principle, that is when it becomes the most challenging, when you do have that information deficit.
Okay, thank you. Pierrot, s'il te plaît. it should just come on
I close it.
magically up from upstairs.
The greatest challenge I had is when I moved back in my community in 2007. I made a decision to start to investigate a phenomenon of cultural oblivion, of erasure, between generations. So I moved back in the community, and I had really, as many people of my generation, few idea about why there was this gap in transmitting knowledge about a specific event, which was the Salmon War. So moving back in the community and trying to understand, what were the determinant of this phenomenon, of those silences and absence and international discontinuities, about this event, and listening more and more to elders for years. And at some point, people were telling me things about why there's this emptiness inside, but I was not listening because I was myself indoctrinated and willing to, I was too close to power structure inside of the community too, so I was not hearing what the elders were telling me. But over time, things start to happen to me, obstacles on my quests on truth-telling and searching for the reason behind. So all those obstacles became very key data to understand how cultural oblivion and oblivion is produced within the community. And obviously between oblivion and silence and silences, it's generally not very pleasant things behind. And investigating oblivion means that you put your hand in a bag, but you don't know what is in the bag. But you know that it's certainly hard truth and pains and shame and those things. So the discoveries over time became more and more intense. And at some point, when you discover things, you carry some truth or some knowledge that some people want to bury, and then not only truth become a kind of ordeal for the people that want to forget and make forget, but you become a danger, and then not only people want to bury the truth, but they want to bury you too. So that it's a very dangerous, and it can be a very challenging, not only for me, but for any researcher that goes on this path of integrity and looking for truth. And at some point, you have to make very painful choice between the desire to be loved and your love for truth and integrity. But that's when it starts to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, this is also very interesting. Another dimension in looking for what is true, to maybe not always wanting things unearthed. So this is a presumption one can make, that one wants the truth. There might be an incorrect presumption. In the case of Nancy's example, one may presume that the public will wait until the information is ready, but that's obviously a naive view. But it would make some sense that the experts sort of, get to earn their keep and get their voice, and then the examples of the researcher and also the simple fact, of even knowing in a small shop what's going on. So Pascal. Autre chose à ajouter à cette grande collection?
One very quick example, and it will give you an idea of what I meant when I said earlier that we are always trying to narrow the question. It's about pesticides. We have never done a fact-checking asking, for example, are pesticides safe? That will be too large. But about 18 months ago, we have an opportunity when a French author came in Quebec for a tour of his book, and one of her affirmations was Roundup is causing as much cancer as asbestos. In French, le Roundup est aussi cancérigène que l'amiante. So we said, good. We have something that can be fact-checked, because of course we have decades of research on asbestos and its impact on health. We have decades of research of data about workers in the same environment, some exposed to asbestos, other not, and we do know that there is a huge impact on cancer. If the same impact was there with Roundup, it would have appeared a long time ago on the radar. It does not. So we could say that on this is wrong. This is wrong. Roundup does not cause as much cancer as asbestos. And the funny part, or the good part of this article is that this is the kind of subject, of topics, who attract a lot of negative comments of people who are saying that we are sold to the big pharma, or in that case, we are sold to Monsanto. But here, almost no negative comments. Why? Because even somebody who is opposed to pesticides could look at that and say, yeah, okay, this affirmation, that does not make any sense.
Okay, very interesting. So I'm looking at the time. We actually reserved a lot of space and time for the audience. So